Alright, so before actually analyzing my gameplay, I want to make something very clear. The average person who makes a video explaining the decisions they make is the same person who will only display the content they performed well in. I think this is a terrible way to help others improve at whatever because you're only analyzing your strengths without including your weaknesses. And it doesn't take a genius to realize that there is no single perfect player in Mario Kart Deluxe. You could watch the best player in the world make the most insane play in history, then proceed to get shit on because they didn't use common sense. In this series, I intend to fix this problem that many people have, including my previous self.
Hello everyone, my name is John and I'm a new director for Mario Kart Cinema and I'm very excited to create content for this channel.
Alright, that doesn't fit the point I'm trying to make, but you can tell by listening to my dull voice that I was very insecure and didn't want people to make fun of my blunders. I'm not the most skilled player by any means, but I know enough about the game to distinguish what I do right from what I do wrong. So I'll stop talking nonsense and start f***ing Givin'er as I commence the JPGivin'er analysis. Alright, so getting down to it, this first race in Bowser's Castle is from the America's Cup match, Arcadia versus Inflow. We started this race in top 3 after farming idiots on Cheeseland because, according to Aaron, Inflow never pulls shock. Okay, I want to note something here real quick. That was a straightforward trick to pull off, and I lost quite a bit of time not getting it. So if you're ever in a situation where you aren't confident in your ability to pull off a trick successfully, an example of this could be the tricks on Mount Wario before the final anti-gravity. If you're in a situation like that, you should just shake the controller. It makes a huge difference, so if you start incorporating that into your average race, you'll be giving her full throttle. Alright, let me explain my thought process behind going on the right path. So as you could see, I had a pretty clear vision of who was in front of me. It was one teammate and one opponent. And since I have a red shell and I can also see that the opponent in front of me has no item, I intend to follow him whichever path he goes on. So you can later see that even if I didn't go the right path, I would still be behind an opponent, which is why going the right path was actually a risk because Cora only had a mushroom for what I could see. And it's really important to keep in mind that this game is really fast-paced, and with everyone being so close to each other at the beginning of every race, it's important to keep your calls limited to the most critical information. What I'm trying to say is that by asking Cora which path he's going on, it won't be as essential as other information that I may interrupt from other people in the call. So to sum this up, I was right in following my opponent, but I was wrong in not protecting Cora. Okay, so now you can see that I took a bit of a wide line because of the communication made by our top 2. They decided to back a bomb on the other team. It's pretty easy to see that I was able to successfully avoid this, but the biggest takeaway from this is that it is super important to listen to everything that your team has to say during a race. In the event that I let myself get hit by this bomb, then it's not nearly as influential as only hitting the other team. Okay, so that wasn't anything crazy. It was just a driving mistake on my part. Unfortunately, I do have a pretty bad habit where I can just release my drift for no reason at all. And unfortunately, given the situation, it could ruin my race. But thankfully, the only spot I lost because of this was to my teammate, so the damage wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. Alright, so the shock comes in, and thankfully only 2 of us got target shock, but more importantly, the only person from the other team who was able to infiltrate our top spots ended up getting redded. Now, I don't know the context behind why they used their shock when they did, but as you can see here, the Wario, Brandon, who was on our team, was able to hit the glider, and the Shy Guy, Ace, who also happens to be on our team, was barely able to get the box, which is why we were able to secure our top spots. So the biggest takeaway from this is that when calling your shocks, you have to make sure that you're in a position where you can screw over the other team effectively, and otherwise, you should just leave that up to someone else. Because of this, we still ended the race getting 5 out of the top 6 spots, despite the other team getting shocked. Okay, so this next race on Twisted Mansion is from the Mario Kart Universal match Arcadia Sky versus Requiem. Now, this was just the first race of the match, but we were still able to salvage some top spots upon joining the room early, which is why the other team actually picked this. So this was an ideal place to shroom up because not only was I able to go from 7th to 4th, but I was able to add extra reinforcements to our front presence since we were already top 3. Now, I think the only situation where it wouldn't be ideal to shroom up would be when your team is top 4 or 5 and you're one of, if not your team's only bottom spot. And in that case, you'd either want to go for shock or checking to see if the other team has shock. In other words, you'd be on shock patrol. Now, if you couldn't tell, Brandon and I actually positioned ourselves to the right since Ace planned on tossing up a bomb on the left. And we did this to avoid getting bombed, obviously. But like I said last race, it's imperative to listen to every critical piece of information that your team offers. The worst case scenario here would be that all 3 of us got hit by the bomb. But regardless, it worked out and now we are comfortably in top 3. Okay, so as you can see here, Brandon let me take first since I had a mushroom. And in most cases, this is the right thing to do since if a blue comes, you don't want to have to scramble all over the place to ensure that no one gets affected by the blue. However, in this case, I don't think it was the right decision because now I plan to shroom up, considering our opponent also had a shroom. I don't believe enough teams value extending your lead as much as possible in the event you get screwed over badly by, say, a shock. Since we were already top 3, Brandon and I were already protected by our other top spot. Brandon didn't lose much time by letting me in the first, but the best case scenario would have been to just keep driving normally, and then because of that, we would lose no time at all. This was just a small thing in terms of the actual race. So the biggest takeaway from this is that when you're controlling the top spots, you need to do your absolute best to increase the lead you have on the other team. And nothing too significant happens for the rest of the race, and we once again ended up getting 5 out of the top 6 spots. Alright, so this last race, which is on Animal Crossing, is actually from the same match as the first race, Bowser's Castle. But I wanted this to go last because of a severe mistake I made for the team. And yes, I know I could have just put the Bowser's Castle race second in the list, but my music choice was honestly too hype for it not to be first. Definitely not because I'm a lazy editor. Okay, so remember how last race I talked about extending your lead as much as possible? So my thought process behind holding my items was that since my mushroom is in my second slot, it's always going to be secure from a boo coming. And I also didn't want to shroom up because Ace already had a horn on first. And sometimes if you're in second with a horn and the timing isn't right with the blue could completely get around the horn radius, assuming you're in a position to horn the blue 9 times out of 10 successfully. But even so, Cora ended up shrooming past both of us. But the biggest takeaway from this is that if possible, without sacrificing too much speed, you should let the person with the horn into or keep first. Alright, that wasn't worth explaining. I just had to say that was a sick ass back right on the banana. Alright, so at this point, T-Pulse told us he has shock, and since we're currently top 3 without many bomb spots, we can't get any items to dodge the shock. So I recommended that we fall off in top 3, and this was a terrible idea combined with my misplays. So I'll first let the aftermath do the talking. Don't get me wrong, dodging by falling off can be super effective, if used correctly. But this was a terrible spot for me to call shock. For starters, if you get shocked onto a glider, you glide at the same speed as you would if you weren't shocked. So our opponents who were able to hit the glider were able to catch up to us right away. Even though the person who got into first dodged, it would hardly make a difference if he got shocked directly onto the glider. And on top of that, I made a terrible play by not chaining my horn first set in an attempt to get protection. And this would allow me to use my shroom immediately after landing after the shock and be right back up to speed without being defenseless. So all things considered, this shock was a terrible call on my end, and it gave Inflow the winning race here. So if you're watching this video within a few days of it being uploaded, chances are this is the only video on my channel. But why I'm bringing this up is because I've tried to get into YouTube many times in the past, and every time I tried to take YouTube seriously, I just ended up not being myself, and I put forth a terrible effort to really make something happen. Since then, I've gone through a pretty significant transformation, and more importantly, in the context of YouTube, I know how to express my best self. So if you liked what you saw today, you should subscribe and turn notifications on, because I don't plan to minimize the quality of my videos anytime soon. Now, at the end of my first Mario Kart Cinema video, I said this.
Anyways, that's it for me. I'm very excited to bring Mario Kart Deluxe content to this channel, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content I provide. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
So hopefully what I'm about to say sounds a bit more genuine and energetic. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day, and keep on giving her, bud.